Namaste, Ram Ram, Pranam everyone. कैसी हो? I hope everybody is good.
doing great. So guys, आप लोगों का हमारे चैनल में स्वागत है. आज
I'm Marcia. I'm from Poland.
Adi. I'm from India.
From Uttar Pradesh.
From Gorakhpur. Okay, guys. So Marcia, what are we going to watch?
We're
today?
gonna react on the famous interviews of your foreign minister.
The legend.
He's legendary, you
Yeah.
know. Because he was in the news lately a lot because he had such a smart,
Sense of humor,
you know,
actually,
answer in the interview. So we're gonna react on this interview.
Yeah,
I
actually,
think more than one.
I don't know
One?
actually this video. I don't know, but yeah, it's the title is actually.
Wow.
So you guys, I know every Indian know about these guys, and we all proud that we really get a leader like a diamond.
Such a smart person who's not afraid to speak. You know,
There's
he's
a
brave.
thing.
He's a brave guy.
Whatever he speak, you know, he speak not in India. He speak when he was in America.
Yeah.
He speak when he was in Brussels. Actually, you know, we are 20 kilometers far away from the Brussels.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, he was here, and that was really, really great. When you know, it's such a proud.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
other people, let me complete, baby. It's really so proud when you know people from other country come and they talk about your leader. So yeah, it's happened with me.
Yeah.
You know, some people from here came and talk about me about that you foreign minister is really such a great guy.
Yeah.
So okay, guys,
Okay,
let's watch what he
watch.
talk about. I think I know 50%, but Marcia don't have a clue. So let's open
A
her
little
mind.
bit.
Thanks so much for taking your time. In 2022, about 18,000 people from India have applied for political asylum in Austria. For several months, there was no other country with more asylum seekers here. How would you explain that?
Well, I mean, I don't know the numbers. If you say so, I have to take you at your word. But my sense is that when it comes to irregular migration, sometimes, because these are done by syndicates and gangs, you never know where they end up with. I think what's important is not what happened in the past. It is that we have a commitment to ensure that movement and mobility is legal. We would like a regime, an agreed regime for that. It's good for the global workplace. It's good for the Austrian economy. And we have, that's one of the outcomes of my visit to Vienna.
Another outcome is that you have assured Austria's foreign minister that India will take back all of these citizens who will not get asylum in Austria, which will probably be almost 100%. How fast will this happen?
Look, in terms of our citizens, if they're proven to be our citizens, we obviously have an obligation in that regard. But what is important for us is to validate the fact that if there's somebody who's staying illegally, that they are our citizens.
And
If there are citizens, usually we work it out between the governments concerned. I can't give you a time frame on it because it depends on what is the level of proof that is provided for us and what are the preparations on the Austrian side.
So you did not agree on a time frame today?
No, we didn't. Frankly, we didn't get into that kind of discussion. That is for the immigration people to decide. As foreign ministers, what we did was to work out an agreed mobility and movement regime. So we were looking for solutions. We weren't into the details of returnees' problem. That there are other people whose jobs it is to do that.
Let's talk about the war in Ukraine. As you are well aware, the whole world noticed that India, as a very influential country, has never publicly condemned Russia's assault and invasion into a neighboring country. Why is that so? Can you really be neutral in a war for which obviously one side bears all responsibility?
Well, look, I think in international relations, you have sometimes very complicated situations. And where we are concerned, we have always taken the position that the way out is for the countries concerned to get back to dialogue and to diplomacy.
I'll come to that soon, but is this a complicated situation? Is this really complicated? There's just
absolutely.
one big country invading its neighbor.
No, look, I can give you many instances of countries who have violated the sovereignty of another country. If I were to ask where Europe stood on a lot of those, I'm afraid I'll get a long silence. So do understand one thing. At the end of the day, we make judgments in foreign policy based on what we think are our long-term interests and what is good for the world.
But you and Prime Minister Modi have already said that regularly call on both sides to stop the war and to negotiate. However, can one really urge Ukraine to stop defending itself? After all, there are no Ukrainian tanks in Russia. There are Russian tanks and planes and missiles destroying Ukraine.
I think that's a bit of a misrepresentation. I think what we do is to say, get back to dialogue and diplomacy. There was dialogue and diplomacy in the early days of the conflict. So it's not that it didn't happen. So it's not for us to put conditions and to say this country is equal to that country. That's your judgment.
But should you urge Russia to stop the war?
I think we have been very clear that this conflict is not in anybody's interest, including theirs.
But you wouldn't say it more explicitly.
I'm a diplomat. It is my job to conduct foreign policy which serves my national interests and which serves what I believe is a long-term pathway towards peace and dialogue.
Let's talk about India's interests. India does not take part in Western sanctions against Russia, but has increased its imports from Russia 5 times since the war began. By this, are you not helping Moscow? Are you not financing Russia's war?
You know, Europe imported in the same period 6 times the energy which India did. So
Europe decreased its imports a lot and dramatically since the war started. You multiplied yours.
No, essentially, if it is a matter of principle, why didn't Europe cut on the first day? Why didn't we see on 25th of February a complete cutoff of energy imports from Russia?
But
you can't say it's my principle, but by the way, I will do it by my timing.
Okay, but isn't it the difference between decreasing your imports but still making sure that Europe is not freezing to death in the winter, or just increasing your imports by 5 times?
No, Europe has managed to reduce its imports while doing it in a manner in which it is comfortable for Europe.
Comfortable?
It's manageable.
It's manageable. Maybe a little bit of an
It's manageable. Now, if at 60,000 euros or whatever is your per capita income, you are so caring about your population. I have a population at $2,000. I also need energy. I'm not in a position to pay high prices. The price of oil has doubled. So, and what Europe is doing is also moving into the Middle East and diverting production out of the Middle East into Europe and raising prices. So European actions actually are putting pressure on the global oil markets and on my imports as well. So I think it's something which, if European political leadership understandably would like to soften the impact on their population, I think it's a privilege they should extend to other political leaderships as well.
Are you reluctant toward Moscow as well, because Russia is India's most important supplier of weapons and military equipment?
And therefore?
Are you reluctant to criticize Moscow?
No, I think, look, we have a relationship with Moscow. We've had a long-term relationship with Moscow. I think it's important to look at that history of the relationship. It was a relationship built in a period when Western democracies used to arm a military dictatorship called Pakistan and deny India defensive weapons. So if we are talking about principles, let's talk a little bit of history out here. So how did the Indian exposure to Russia and previously to Soviet Union get built up? Because the Western democracies, for whatever reason, decided that their natural partner in our part of the world was a military dictatorship.
Would you consider India an ally of Russia?
No, I think India doesn't. We are an independent country. We do not define ourselves or perceive ourselves in alliance terms. That's very much a Western terminology. It's not a term that we use.
Before you said you're a diplomat, but several weeks ago you called Pakistan, your neighbor, the epicenter of terrorism.
Well, I did it again today without using the word Pakistan.
Yes, and this doesn't sound very diplomatic, does it?
No, because you are a diplomat doesn't mean you're untruthful. I could use much harsher words than epicenter. So believe me, considering what has been happening to us, I think epicenter is a very diplomatic word, because this is a country which has attacked the Parliament of India some years ago, which attacked the city of Mumbai, which went after hotels and foreign tourists, which every day sends terrorists across the border.
But of
So
course,
sometimes when we
of
talk,
course not as a country.
well, if you control your sovereign space, which I believe they do, if the terrorist camps operate in broad daylight in cities with recruitment and financing, can you really tell me that the Pakistani state doesn't know what's going on? Especially if they're being trained in military level combat tactics. So, when we speak about judgments and principles, why don't I hear sharp European condemnation of these practices which have been going on for multiple decades?
Does the world have to be concerned that there someday will be a war between India and Pakistan?
I think the world has to be concerned that there is terrorism going on, and the world often looks away. The world often feels it's not my problem because it's happening to some other country. I think the world needs to be concerned about how sincerely and strongly it takes up the challenge of terrorism.
But has the world to be concerned about the future war between India and Pakistan?
I think the world needs to be concerned about terrorism.
That's
because,
what you said.
Yeah, sure. Because look, if you pose it the way you do, that's like giving a free pass to terrorism, saying, let's worry about the next consequence of it. I am worried about the terrorism.
Okay, let's change the subject. You frequently said that India has a very complicated relationship with your neighboring China. Many people around the world are quite concerned that China might, in the near future, intervene militarily in Taiwan. Do you share this concern?
I think there's a larger concern which is based on our experiences. The concern is that we had agreements with China not to mass forces in our border areas. And they have not observed those agreements, which is why we have the currently tense situation that we do. We had an agreement not to unilaterally change the line of control, which they have tried to unilaterally do that. So there is, I think, a perception that we have, which derives directly from our experiences. Now, where else the status quo may change or not change, I would hesitate as a foreign minister to predict publicly. I may have my own views and assessments. But I certainly can share my experience, and my experience is that written agreements were not observed, that we have seen levels of military pressure which in our view has no justification.
China would say the opposite. They would say that India had not obeyed different agreements, but obviously you see it
No, I
otherwise.
think it's difficult for China to say that for this reason. The record is very clear because today, there's a lot of transparency. You have satellite pictures. If you see who moved the forces to the border areas first, I think the record is very clear. So it's very difficult for China to say what you suggested they could.
India will probably overtake China as the world's most populous country within this year. Is this fact of any political significance to India, or is it just a mere statistic?
We'll know that when we reach there, won't we? Yeah, because we have never used numbers in that manner. Maybe other countries have. I would still say, to a large extent, it is a statistic, but you will have a situation where the world's most populous country is not among the permanent members of the Security Council. And what does it say about the state of the UN if that is the case? So it's a kind of both a yes and a no. It's partly a statistic, but I think it's a statistic which means a lot.
For several years, you have called for a permanent seat on the Security Council, as have Brazil, as has Japan or Germany. How long will it take, from your point of view, till this reform of the Council will actually become reality?
Well, ideally, we'd like it yesterday.
Of course.
But the problem, I think, is that those who are today enjoying the benefits of permanent membership clearly are not in a hurry to see reform. I think it's a very short.
Marcia, wow, it was great. Really, he's such a great guy with the intelligence, with the smartness, and with the truth. like such a true guy.
He's very honest about
Honesty. About everything,
everything. His duty to India, to the economy, and sometimes I feel that the West throws unnecessary shots to India about this gas, about oil, because Europe also buy from Russia. So it's not easy situation. All the world is in crisis. So why attacking the countries each other? Why you supporting this? Why you buy this? He do this for his people, and
Because he was chosen by the people.
Yeah.
His responsibility is to keep promise for their own people. The things he explained, like people, like he said before that, yeah, Russia, like European also buy from that Russia.
yeah, we have
But
to.
yeah, because it was €1.5 before. After the war, it became like approx €3, like 100% hike in the
But
petrol
also
and fuel.
electricity price is 50% up here, and the gas price is 150% up. So
Yeah, and
this is
I have no words really. I don't have word, like his intelligence. How you can reply such a great answer in the same time,
He's
because
very eloquent.
This is not a TV show, man. This is actually interviewer, thousands of people sitting, and you have to represent your country. And in this
It's
mess,
not easy in these times,
yeah, in that time everyone just wanted to put you down, make our point. So yeah, he did
Yes.
such a great job, and
He
we are
did
proud
such a
to
great-
have
great job.
yeah, external foreign affair minister
We're
like him.
pretty lucky to have him, huh?
Yes, that's right. And I think it's a golden era for India. So let's see 25 30
Hopefully,
years later
hopefully.
what's going to be happen.
Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so much for watching
us.
us. You can subscribe our channel, like our video, and if you want to check out Marcia's Instagram ID
Thank you
or
so
mine,
much.
you can check in the description box.
Sure.
Namaste.
Namaste,
Sat Sri Akal,
Pranam.
Pranam.
Check,
Jai